Welcome to Syntax. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Front End Happy Hour podcast.
Welcome to this week's JS Party.
Live from Shipshape Studios, this is Whiskey, Web, and Whatnot, with your hosts, Robbie the Wagner and me, Charles William Carpenter III.
That's right, Charles. We drink whiskey and talk about web development. I mean, it's all in the name. It's not that deep.
This is Whiskey, Web, and Whatnot. Do not adjust your set.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Whiskey, Web, and Whatnot.
Oh, wait, that already happened.
Yes, that did already happen. You've heard the intro. This is still the show. We have a special guest today, Josh Cirre. What's going on, Josh?
Hey, I'm super excited to be here. Yeah, I'm a longtime listener, first time caller of Whiskey, Web, and Whatnot. So I was super excited to get the chance to be on here.
Nice. Yeah, we're excited to have you. Can you give a few sentences about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So my name's Josh Cirre. That's how you pronounce my last name. I've heard all the iPhone Siri jokes there are, probably then some in some ways. But I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and I work full time actually with the Laravel team. I'm a content creator and kind of YouTuber, I guess I can be called now in some ways. But yeah, mostly I help out the Laravel team in creating content as well as some open source stuff and customer support.
Cool. And yeah, we should jump into the whiskey, I guess. But before we do, your microphone is very nice and boomy. I'm just curious, what is it plugged into?
It is plugged into, so Shure SM7B for those listening, and it is plugged into DBX286S, which is like a preamp / compressor / noise gates / everything. So it's all hardware, because before I used to have it all be software generated and I could like have my VST plugins and all that. Sometimes the delay was terrible, and so now I just can turn it on and not have to touch anything. So usually I don't touch anything. It's funny because I just got a comment or a bunch of comments this morning on a YouTube video about how I need to speak up and talk louder, and they couldn't hear me. So I get the whole spectrum.
Sounds good to me. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Well, what else sounds good? This thing, I neglected to open it at all, so we'll see how this goes. But I wanted to show off the box. The box looks cool. Let's see. You tell us about it while I'm opening it, Chuck.
Okay, perfect. Today we're having the Crown Royal 18-year extra rare. I don't know what makes it extra rare, but it is a blended whiskey. So that means it is the youngest whiskey that is in here is 18 years. So it could be some older stuff. We don't know. Also means the mash bills could be mixed up, but the Crown Royal base mash bill is 64% corn, 31.5% rye, and 4.5% malted barley. So apparently it's very bourbon-like, but because it's not made in the United States, it can't be called bourbon. And it is 80 proof. So not very hot, but it is old as shit. Not my shit. My shit was very young this morning.
That's how they describe you, right, Chuck? Not very hot, but is old as shit.
Yeah.
I was going to say that could be a good tagline.
Yeah, I think that's my two primary characteristics these days.
All right. Look at this here. Let's give it a sniffy sniff.
It definitely smells like a bourbon, like more bourbon-y than most whiskeys I've had.
Yeah, it does kind of like, it doesn't smell super smoky, but it's very sweet smelling. I'm getting notes of rubber basketballs, a little bit of pineapple. Just making shit up here.
Yeah. Whoa. I was gonna say like maybe my nose is not working at all. I'm like I smell like caramel stuff, and that's about it.
Well, that's not bad. I think that comes from the corn forward sweetness aspect of it. Let's see here.
Oh wow, that's really smooth.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's very.
It smells a little Christmassy to me.
Oh, does it? I think that's just the season. That's the Christmas tree behind you.
Yeah. It's beginning to smell a lot like Christmas. Sorry, you didn't know you were going to get singing on this when you agreed to it. I do think I've fixed my internet problem, so you are all welcome for that. I'm going to bring up the live chat, see if that happens.
For my son.
Nice. Yeah. No, now you can see the wrinkles. I'm sorry. It's frightening. You're still a little fuzzy.
Can't you tell it to like not upload while you're doing this or something? Are you able to pause your
I don't
uploading? You know what I'm talking about? I don't know.
That's
Maybe
not what
I'm
I
wrong.
did, but that's okay. I swat the network. For the technical term for the, or the layman's term for the non-technical is I changed the Wi-Fi network. Click the button and switch to the other one, the 2.4 hertz.
How is swapping
gigahertz.
the network more like technical than changing the Wi-Fi?
That's why it's funny. Anyway, I'm going to drink
Okay.
this so I can
Do it. You won't.
get through this interview. Not because of you, Josh. You're lovely. I mean, Seth. There is something you mentioned while we have this. Ooh, yeah, it is. It's sweet.
It's very
has
sweet.
A little
I
more.
like it.
It has a little more burn than I would have expected, actually, from an 80 proofer. So I know it's there. It's not too like watery. I want something that forces me to sip it a little bit. So, yeah, not bad. It's interesting. It's a little bit of like. It's got some sweetness in the beginning. It's got a little bit of like big red gum in there flavor to me, and then
Not the soda this time.
No, that's why I said big red gum. It exists, Robbie. I'm going to send it to you. So where I grew up, they had this soda. It was kind of like a red cream soda called Big Red. And
Big Red.
Anyway,
Yeah.
And then there's Big Red the gum.
I've heard of it.
So, yeah, see? Robert. The finish is mild, but the burn is there. I don't know. But it's not
Yeah, it
cinnamony.
tastes kind of like if you took Crown Royal and made it taste good, it kind of tastes like that to me. It's like if you, like normal Crown Royal is very, very sweet and young tasting. And I think like distilling it down for longer is like made
That's the
it
way to
taste
go.
like it brings out the good parts. And it,
No,
I don't know. I'm pretty pleased with it, honestly.
Yeah, I have to say I'm enjoying it.
I really like it. It tastes to me very like vanilla pine caramel. Like that's what
Vanilla, that's it.
tastes
I
to
feel
me.
like I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point out. I was like, there's some nuance and light in the finish for me, and I think that's more of the vanilla I get. Oh yeah, yeah.
Because usually,
Fairly
like
tasty.
with Robbie, what you said with like the Crown Royal, but better. The aftertaste, like the very, very end, feels like that, but the beginning feels incredible. Completely different.
Very, very different. Well, since you're our only listener and you're on the show, nobody is currently listening. So, but just in case later on somebody picks it up, I'm going to explain our highly technical rating system, which is from 0 to 8 tentacles. 0 tentacles being fucking horrible, spit this out. 4, middle of the road, and 8 being amazing, clear the shelves. Yeah, also, maybe you're rich because this isn't cheap. And we categorize them. You don't have to, but we'll let Robert go first. Robert, the Bruce, the
Yeah,
third.
speaking of being rich, I went into the ABC store to get this. They were all dusty on top. And I went to buy it, and the guy goes, "Oh, wow, I haven't seen anyone ever buy one of these." I was like, all right, cool. But anyway, yeah, this is pretty good. I don't really know what category to put it in, having not done any other Canadian whiskeys on the show or any other Crown Royals. I've had a lot of Crown Royals, but not on the show. I think in terms of like super sweet kind of bourbon-y, this is pretty good for me. I would give it, honestly, a 7.5, I think.
Wow, that's pretty good. Do you have feels, Josh?
Yeah, I think so. I am very much a bourbon drinker for the most part. Like that's usually my go-to.
Yeah, I knew
especially drinking and eat. Yeah, so like that's what I'm kind of comparing this. This is my first Canadian whiskey though, so nothing to compare it to in that realm, but just solely on the smoothness without it like having too much burn. So because I'm one of those that like too much burn, then I'm like, this is nice. I can taste the flavor, but like I don't want to continually sip it. And so this is, I would say this would be like a 7.2 for me.
Nice. That's very respectable. Yeah. So I have had Crown Royal before. No other than like their standard issue. It's been quite a while too, so I really can't. I remember getting it when I was younger in college, and I thought it was so cool because it comes in this nice bag, which this one comes in a really nice bag.
A nicer
actually.
bag, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, like, feels velvety. I don't know if it is velvet,
Yeah.
but...
like you can make a couch out of this.
Yeah, I would sit on this couch. This is, I don't know if I could categorize it with any other Crown Royal or any other Canadian whiskey, and that's perhaps something I should explore more. I'd always understood Canadian whiskeys to be more like ryes, so learning that the mash bill of this was more like bourbon is illuminating, and maybe that's something to dig into more. But yeah, as far as like a bourbon goes, this isn't too sweet, but the sweet notes are nice, and they're balanced out for me with like some of the spice and just a very clean finish and a little hug without like making me like choke. So I think it's delicious. I plan to share it with friends. It's a little expensive, but it's not crazy. I think it was like 130, give or take, something like that for the bottle. So if you're looking to get something nice, I would say yes, absolutely, pick this up. I think it outpunches some other that are 100, 150, and even above that we've had. So I too am more like a 7.5 for me. I don't know what kind of grouping that is, but I do enjoy this whiskey. I would suggest it to others. I will share it with friends. Make it a little special holiday thing. I would pick this over some other things for sure.
I do wonder, though, how do you think it would pair with Taco Bell?
I saw you put this comment in the show notes, and I want to know where this comes from, because I did do a little digging on Josh, and I didn't come up with anything around Taco Bell. And we're both in Phoenix, Arizona, so he should be ashamed of himself if it's what I think it is.
Is Taco Bell Mexican food?
No. I love Taco Bell, and I would say it's not even Mexican food. But it is decent fast food budget.
Yes. Yes, for the money, I think it is some of the best fast food, for sure.
I also think, like, this could be a really hot take, but I think quality-wise, it is better than most, like, top-rated fast food. So if you think, like, McDonald's, Burger King, I don't know, Wendy's, I think Taco Bell quality-wise is probably better than those.
I need to go to your Taco Bell, because the one that's near me is... They still have the 90s decor. It's not one that they've managed to like do a remodel on. So it's like that. And like, just because I've taken my son there once or twice, something like that. I think I read somewhere though that they invented the crunchy taco, right? Is it that? I'm pretty sure it's them. Taco Bell invented the crunchy taco.
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe I read something that would sound familiar. That there was very few people like making crunchy type tacos, and I was like, okay, hey, let's do this.
And I know crunchy tacos are an American thing. Like they were not, and pretty much are still not a thing in Mexico. But they have tostadas, like just folded up. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably just took like a corn tortilla and were like, you know what, people hate when these get really like soggy and your finger goes through it or whatever. Let's just bake them a really long time and see what happens. And they were like, oh, this works.
Yeah. I think, don't they like deep fry and then like hang them on a thing and then basically like it
probably
dries in that or something? I don't remember. Something of that nature, but I feel like I've seen it once. That said, I still think that's a hot take and strong statement around it's the highest quality fast food.
Maybe not highest quality, but top five, I would say. Like if we're talking about fast food, you can get an entree under, let's say, $12.
Yeah, you got to raise those standards these days. Yeah. I do feel like fast food has gotten expensive.
Chick-fil-A is the number one quality-wise. I feel
that's
like.
true. Yeah.
It's not necessarily my favorite flavor. It doesn't have enough chemicals in it to be yummy like Taco Bell does.
And they haven't managed to like squeeze in enough fake cheese and whatever else in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, Chick-fil-A, I would kind of put in almost in like the tier 2. So there's like tier 1 budget tier, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Taco Bell.
And national,
Chick-fil-A,
right? So
In-N-Out, maybe Whataburger you could kind of put in, maybe that tier 2.
Yeah, I was going to say, because In-N-Out's quality, would like it or not, you got to say like the quality is just top notch. You know,
it just
and that's what I think
makes
makes
a
it
fresh
great.
burger.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the fries are like literally you can watch them cutting them. It's like doesn't get better than that, but we could debate that all day long because I think Robbie, you tried In-N-Out and you were like, meh.
No, so here's the thing. Everyone swears on it being like so amazing, and I hadn't tried it for the first say 25 years of my life or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I tried it after hearing about it forever. I was like, this is a burger, guys. Like, this is fine. I don't dislike it, but it's like, I'm not like, oh my God, I should go to this all the time.
Yeah. And I also feel like you're not like a burger, like you're not a fiend for burger. Like, I love burgers. Like, if you were like,
I would get Five Guys over In-N-Out all day long.
Interesting. Interesting.
Five Guys, like toppings and all of that stuff, great. I love their fries because I like a greasy fry, actually.
Yeah.
And so I prefer that with Five Guys. But like Five Guys, like if you don't get all the crap on the Five Guys burger, it's fine. It's all right,
Yep.
you know. But it's just all this extra crap. And fun fact, extra bacon, free. So you get
At
a
Five
single
Guys?
patty, extra bacon. Yeah, that's the Five Guys hack. All the way, extra bacon. There
What if you
go.
want 18 extra bacons? Is that free?
No, just one order of extra bacon. That's all you get. You asked the questions that you already know. But I don't know.
Yeah. Do we talk technology on this podcast?
No,
do
we
we do
don't.
any of that?
I wonder why no tech places want to sponsor us.
It's Whatnot. Yeah.
We jump into Whatnot, in and out a whole bunch. But was React a mistake?
Was React a mistake? I don't think so.
Wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Sorry.
Immediate like shut down. I think how people used React and then built on top of it is a mistake.
That's
Yeah.
fair. Nuanced answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talk about that all the time, that like React on its own as the view rendering layer is fine. Everything we've done since then is not fine.
Yeah, it was magic. It was beautiful. I enjoyed. Like
Yeah.
I had so much fun with it when it first came out, and I got to move over to like just this component is reactive and like made login just no refresh. You just boom, get your new state. I love it. And you know, state is just passing something else to that component. And it was so the days of simplicity, class components. I miss them.
I think like where it becomes mistakes, or even just like where it becomes difficult to adjust for things, is like when you try to fit or try to solve problems with tools that weren't meant to solve problems with. And so then you have like this rendering layer that you're trying to say like, okay, like maybe we'll just make this the server too, or maybe we'll just like, maybe we'll have all of our like data fetching in this component too. And so I think that's where like the mistake comes. As a like a rendering tool, I think like it's still incredible. Like there's nothing in terms of like ecosystem coming up against it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the other side, is like the rate of that it's been adopted at. It's sort of like you can't ignore it necessarily in circumstances. So
Yeah, unfortunately. Something else that you can't ignore, Tailwind or vanilla CSS?
I learned web development in a weird age, or like this weird time where like I learned a lot of really basics, but then when I got into actually building applications, like learning React, I learned vanilla CSS, but I feel like I couldn't write vanilla CSS right now unless I would search for like the Tailwind term and then figure out how I'm supposed to write it. That would probably be how I would have to write vanilla CSS.
Yeah.
I still have a couple of projects that are, I forget like what's the, it's kind of like the pink nail as an icon. I forget what the React.
Sass?
oh, Sass, yeah.
Not Sass.
Oh.
It's called like
Stylus?
emotion CSS or
I don't know. Just throwing stuff out.
but it's basically
Right,
like you
right.
write CSS inline in your components. So I have a couple projects that use that. And like every time I jump to them, I'm like, it'd be nice if I could just like write this on the component, because I suck at naming. That's why I don't like vanilla CSS.
That's what I
really.
like about Tailwind, is that it's already figured that part out for me. I mean, I wrote vanilla CSS for like 10 years in various ideologies, and I don't think I could go and write CSS anymore, because the crutch that is Tailwind is like just so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the grid stuff too. I have never written vanilla CSS grid stuff at all. Like I don't need to remember what 1FR is or what min-max does or any of that. Like I can just be like grid calls 3. Like there's my 3 columns. Like
They're done.
Clamps and
Not
all
float
this.
left, float
Yeah.
left, float right, clear fix. If you've ever written a class called clear fix, that's how you know you're OG.
The thing that I like about Tailwind is like, especially when I was learning web development, a lot of the stuff that I couldn't figure out, or just like it took a while for me to wrap my head around, was the fact that, okay, I have all of these components now on the page, but now the CSS isn't scoped to the components. Like the whole scoping aspect was really weird. And that's one of the things I reached for, like emotion CSS and all that, because you could scope it to the React. But like the fact that then I would have to be like, okay, this is this naming ID for this component. And even though I had multiple components and they were still cards, but now this is card dash blank. And now I have to, scope into that. And so I think with Tailwind, or one of the ways that I build a lot of my stuff is like I try to get like all of it working at once. And I feel like with CSS, it's like, okay, like if with vanilla CSS, a lot of times it might be like, okay, I'm writing the HTML and then I'm writing the React and then I'm writing vanilla CSS. And it's kind of like compartmentalized.
Yeah. Well, we were taught that was the right way for a while, right? Separation of concerns until not. And then who knows what the right way is, really. It's like in the moment, this is the right way. And then tomorrow, that was all stupid.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, there is something that does have a right answer. Do you want to ask the next one, Chuck?
okay.
Now I'm scared.
Yeah. You should be. Git Rebase or Git Merge?
I'm going to say the answer based off of which one I use more.
Okay.
So Git Merge.
Yeah. I had a feeling. Because am I right in assuming that maybe you have a lot of independent or small team projects versus large team projects? Yeah.
So like most of the stuff that I've done personally has just been me as a solo developer. And then anything I've done like with a team is usually one or two people, even stuff on the Laravel team. Most of the time I'm not pushing like too much code, but it's only there. It's a small team. I technically have never worked full time as a developer. In the sense I've done like a lot of support engineering type stuff or like solutions engineering type stuff, but I've never worked on a full-time engineering team. And so I've never been with more than 3 people probably on a project.
Yeah. So you
it makes
allude
sense
to
that you
what
wouldn't
is the right
need
answer.
to rebase a lot.
Yep.
Right, exactly.
I've
You
never
could.
had to think about, okay, hey, here's like 20 things being done. Usually it's like, hey, one person takes a feature, you just push do a new checkout branch, and then you're only on that until you push it in.
Yeah, and then at that point, once it gets merged, it could get like squash merged, and then that all the weirdness goes away anyway. But yeah, maybe that should have been the thing. Like, which of the 3 options on GitHub do you pick?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one is maybe more controversial. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll switch it for next time. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think that that's often an artifact of what your working situation is, which is why like the right answer is always it depends. Like, yeah, Rebase will work in all of the scenarios per se, but it adds a lot of complexity and there's a learning curve there. And is it necessary? No, being productive is necessary and things beyond that. But then, if you're not following a large team and you do the other thing, you do your thing, well, then you have 25 people mad at you because everybody's using this thing and now stuff got all crazy and weird and their own updates of their personal branch, yada, yada, yada. But it is a fun one to ask.
That is one of those times. I mean, I've only had a couple of those scenarios when it's like, okay, hey, 30 plus people are pushing to a singular branch and everything like that. That's one of those scenarios where like this could be a decent hot thing, but I don't use a Git like GUI or anything. But in those scenarios, it's really helpful for me to like see it visually. Be like, okay, hey, here's all like the files that were changed and I can see it all. I don't have to do like all these Git diffs and all the things like that. That's the one time I usually reach for a GUI.
Oh, yeah. So otherwise, you're a real developer. You don't really depend on a GUI, right? That's cool.
Yeah. Otherwise, I don't even have like I feel like I should have, but like I don't even have aliases for like git add, git commit, git push. I just type it all out every single time.
It's not that long. So like, yeah, the people that need it to be like 2 characters, like it takes you like literally 1 more second, which I guess, if you add them all up over your whole life, it's like, I saved 5 minutes before I died.
Whatever. I have the aliases.
There's nothing wrong with them. I just don't think they're required. Like,
no, they're not required. Like I have like one that I use all the time is git status. So GS is like really fun and easy. There's some that I want to type out, like when I'm get pushing with like force with lease, that kind of stuff. I want to type that out. I want to be very explicit in certain times. But I also haven't messed with my aliases in probably at least 5-6 years because I was like playing with dot files for a few years. Like, I want my setups on new computers to be super easy. And that was nice. Now I mostly just do the whole like time machine backups become my new, you just like, okay, great, like setup from this backup. And then so I never have to run dot files anymore.
Yeah. I only have one alias that I use. Well, I guess I have a couple. Like I have a git undo alias that does like the whole revert to like last one and everything like that. I learned this from like the Laravel ecosystem. Taylor Otwell has this where it's just WIP, like whip, and that does like a git add all, git commit, work in progress. Like this, so I'm like, okay, if I'm just starting out a project, I just type that. I don't have to worry about those 3 commands. But that's the only one I use. I don't even use a lot of like Laravel folks use, because you have to type PHP artisan a lot for the CLI within Laravel. And a lot of people use like PA or just like art for PHP artisan. I still type it out fully. So that might be one it's just ingrained into me that I'm like, I don't feel like I need to shorten this.
Yeah. Also, depending on like, I use Warp, and before that, I used like the fish shell, and like all of them autocomplete everything.
Oh, yeah.
So it doesn't really, I type a couple letters and just autocompletes. It doesn't matter. So
That's true. Autocomplete
That is nice.
kind of nice. This episode is brought to you by warp.dev. We'll be sending them an
yes,
invoice
we'll send you
after.
a bill. Yes.
Yeah. You didn't know that.
I was going to mention like one of the Git clients I used, and I was like, it's not sponsored, so we'll keep it out of this. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter. But that said, this episode is brought to you by Laravel. Taylor, I would also like a Lambo. Or
yes.
a Ferrari. Is that okay? Can I get a Ferrari? I know that
They don't like each other.
Like each
so,
other.
No.
Yeah, but he's not Italian, you know?
Yeah, he probably wouldn't mind a Ferrari, honestly. Like I don't know him well enough to answer for him in that regard, but
Right. You didn't get invited to the basketball game, or at least on the team.
Yeah,
so that's the difference.
I was there on the sidelines and cheering people on. I was not on the court at all. Yeah,
That's fair though.
I wasn't good enough, honestly. I'm
did they have
5'10".
tryouts? What
I don't
to be
think they had
5'10".
tryouts, but I think they had decided the team before I joined the company. I could be wrong on that. Maybe that was just to ease my own feelings. But
explain it all out. Why didn't we ask Seth Rogen to play with us? Well, because he's high as fuck all the time, so he should just make jokes on the side. Throughout this, we're alluding to, and there was something on Twitter about it, but yeah, your resemblance to that Canadian master ashtray maker is what I understand. So,
yeah, I've said that now. Cause I like comedy so long. This is complete tangent, but I used to almost want to be on part of SNL. It's like I understand and appreciate a lot of comedy, but now I really want to try to get some Seth Rogen impressions going, because now that would be, maybe that's my next full-time gig. Like maybe I'm just a Seth Rogen impersonator, and maybe I can,
for
you should do some deep
parties and
fakes.
stuff.
Do some deep fake videos and like teach everyone how to code some stuff, but like in Seth Rogen's voice.
Seth Rogen's voice. That would be
that would be pretty good. I would enjoy that.
That's a good
I would
idea.
like and subscribe.
I'm writing this down then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. He
I
may
think I already subscribed
send
to
you
your
a cease
videos,
and
so
desist
you're okay.
letter, but we'll see.
We'll see if he cares enough or notices, or he's like, okay, there's this guy in tech who's,
If I don't do a deep fake,
being
and it's
me.
just like an impression. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine.
I think
Yeah.
that's okay
It's
if
fine.
you have like some sort of
Yeah.
Go there you go.
YouTube
when
only
you make it
asks like
big.
when you upload videos, like if you're trying to depict someone else like falsely, so that I should be fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I don't upload videos to YouTube. I don't know if Robbie
They have
does
a lot
it.
of options.
Okay. I was gonna say, yeah, and so he clicks. He's impatient. I was gonna say, like Robbie is the production team partially, and so some of that is happening. We have someone edit and work on some. Do you still upload them, Robbie, yourself, or does
No,
that get
not
done
anymore.
now?
But they don't like add the tags or check all the boxes and stuff. So I do some tweaking afterwards.
Yeah, you go back to OCD it a little bit. He needs medication. It's okay. All right, should we talk about some additional technical things? I mean, we're like really getting into this.
Probably, yeah. I don't know.
Can hot
You
take
go
his
ahead,
ass
Chuck.
all day. Okay.
Yeah. We'll skip the rest
you're
of the hot takes.
Yeah, fair enough.
This just in, Whiskey.fund is now open for all your merch needs. That's right, Robbie. We're hearing reports of hats, sweaters, and t-shirts, as well as a link to join our Discord server. What's a Discord server? Just read the prompter, man. Hit subscribe, leave us a review on your favorite podcast app, and tell your friends about our broadcast. It really does help us reach more people and keeps the show growing. All right, back to your regularly scheduled programming.
I did want to know who would win in an arm wrestling match, Guillermo Rauch or Taylor Otwell? That's an easy one. Come on.
Taylor.
First of all,
Taylor
pick
is
your
like
boss.
6'4". Yeah. So
yeah.
just on sheer height, like
Yeah.
I feel like arm length would definitely be longer. I also
Yeah, for
think
sure.
like Taylor's pretty ripped. I don't know
I
if
think
he
he's
works
pretty
out
buff.
personally, but he's lean.
Yeah. He seems
So
like a buff fellow.
out of a frame.
Yeah. Plus, you're trying to get that Christmas bonus. Okay. So as the self-described JS to PHP guy, tell us about the challenges you've had in making that transition.
I would say the biggest interesting part for me was like I came from a JS world where it was similar to like that CSS stuff that we talked about. You kind of have everything in one file. I'm not very co-location is important kind of thing. So I very much like having, okay, whether was using like Firebase or whatever have you at the time, I like being able to say, okay, I have this component, and in this one file or maybe folder or directory, I have all the things I need to know about that component. And so when I moved to Laravel, one of the things that was really interesting to kind of like think through is like, okay, now I have so much separation. There's like models, and then there's views, and then there's controllers, and like I didn't like that at first, and I still don't like it. So now I use this thing called Livewire Volt, which is basically a single file component that is server rendered. So I can write PHP functions in the top. It's almost like old school PHP, where I can write server side functions that do something in the database or cache or whatever have you, and not have to write any controllers. And so now it's just kind of like models and views in a lot of ways. So like that has improved my developer experience a lot within PHP and within Laravel, because now I feel like I'm writing what I'm used to within JavaScript of having everything. Hey, here's everything in one file. I know what happens. I know when I click this button, I don't have to go look for an API route and then look in a controller to make sure I know how all this is being passed or being collected. Now I just look in one file and can just scroll up.
Nice. Although all of our back-end listener, because there's just one, it's Lane Wagner, and we pay him. He's like, about it. So, but I mean, if it's working for you, I think that's awesome.
I was going to say that also comes down to like me also, a lot of the projects that I do, whether that's just demos or just like my own like personal stuff. Like I know that probably breaks down at bigger teams when you're like, okay, now we have all of this stuff and like, files are getting bigger. Like I think that's the nicety of the flexibility of a lot of PHP stuff, especially like when you have such a structured opinionated framework like Laravel, for example. JavaScript, even within like some of the meta frameworks, if something was to get too big, you don't really have the option of like splitting it up into separation of concerns. You kind of have to do all that manually unless you're rewriting a lot of it in some ways. And so I think like the flexibility of having that while also knowing like, okay, most of the things that I'm doing, I just want to get something working and then I'll revert it or fix it up in the future.
Yeah, I am curious because I haven't really done anything back end like at all aside from an API route here and there. Is that kind of the norm? Because I think Rails also is like MVC based, like they have controllers and stuff. And like, do all of the kind of like server first frameworks still stick to that sort of paradigm?
I think so, at least from what I've seen. Like even Phoenix with Elixir and Rails, and even like some of like the
Django
backside frameworks, Django, even some of the backside frameworks like Node within like Nest.js or like Sails, they're very much separation of concerns. And so I've always said that like if there is something like if Next.js or Astro, for example, wants to become the opinionated framework, Laravel, batteries included, Rails, whatever have you of JavaScript, it's going to not be moving to MVC. It's going to be like sticking with what people are used to writing in JavaScript now and just giving more stuff.
Yeah, I think that's where Next is going for sure, and giving more to a degree. The problem I always have is that, like, to be considered a web application framework, you should be able to have a fully functional web application with just the framework itself. And so many of these miss login authentication aspects of it. I think that's huge. I think like things like mailers and webhooks and all of that are very necessary parts of web applications. You could try to make an argument for or against, but for the most part, like that exists across the board, some sort of functionality. And as soon as you have to reach for other tools or services, then it's no longer a really complete framework. Sure, it is a framework, but I'm not sure it's a complete web application framework in my view.
Yep. That itself was like what I was like frustrated too much about all the JavaScript frameworks that I liked. And like, I think, to be fair, like I think a lot of the services are really nice because you have all this like scaffolded out for you. But it's the fact that it's integrated really cleanly because it is first party associated. So if you have like Rails or Laravel or even Phoenix with Elixir and stuff like that, you have this fact of like, okay, I have with usually the starter kit or like the first creation of it has all the scaffolded out. And when I started messing around with Rails and Laravel and Phoenix and ultimately like chose Laravel mostly because the PHP syntax looked more like JavaScript than Elixir or Ruby to me. So I was like, oh, this makes a little bit more sense. It was mind blowing to me that I could have a user sign up and then be able to like have information displayed from that user on the page. Because if I was trying to do that in any other framework, even with services, there's still like, okay, now my service is separate from my database and now I have to push that into my database and now I have to display that on the page. And so like that really sold me as someone who didn't come from the batteries included framework world. I'm like, oh, this is, why did we not do this more?
That's a great question as things come around full circle. And I think that's the question
I know
that's
why.
being asked a lot. Yeah, go ahead. Money, marketing, what else?
Because people like things that are hard and like solving hard engineering problems and feeling good about themselves. They don't want to go just spin it up for me and then I like focus on, the stuff that actually matters. They want to spend 2 years writing a bespoke React-based framework and then go, wait, all this sucks, and then redo it for 2 years. Like they like that part. They don't like building the business logic. So that's why we keep doing this.
Right. And that's why auth as a service becomes a thing, because either having auth done for you or doing a basic auth implementation, which could be simplified, is not enough of a challenge per se, possibly. Conversely, the idea is like, oh yeah, well, this is a solved problem, just use the thing. But when it scales, and they'll be like, oh, because if I do it myself, it may not scale, and then I've got to come back to this problem. The irony is that, yeah, sure, that Auth0 scales, Clerk scales, whatever. That's all true, or I'll assume it to be true. But it also gets really expensive. So what is worse? Like you're starting to scale and you've got to put more engineering power into scaling the thing, infrastructure-wise or complexity-wise, who knows? I don't know. But I think that's like the gray area that becomes a big part of the question more recently. So, and as I get older, I'm just like, get off my lawn. All the old stuff was fine.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like, I don't know if it's like human instinct or maybe it's just like where developers are kind of like it's like that aspect of, okay, I don't necessarily need this to be different, but what if I don't want this to be opinionated? And so I think a lot of people get turned off with, oh yeah, Laravel, you really only have, there's people who write plain CSS in Laravel, for example, but most of the time, 90% of people I would say are currently in modern Laravel are probably writing Tailwind. Or you have these opinions of, okay, you have a database connector, so you're not using a different ORM within Laravel. I think JavaScript developers or just developers in general probably like the idea of having, okay, like, yes, it's nice that I can use this, but what if I ever wanted to change in the future? You like having opinions, but you don't want that locked inness kind of thing, and you end up being more locked in some ways.
Yeah. It's actually what I started disliking about React apps at the time when I was using React early on, like 2014 when it came out, and I loved it for its purposes. And then you started making full-fledged single-page applications, and it was like choose your own adventure. There's like create React app, and then you have to add a router, and React router was a big one, or there was some other stuff. And then what's your state management? It was this, and now it's this, and whatever else. But you never really like change midstream. You're never like halfway through building an app, and then you said, oh, yeah, that package sucks now, and I'm going to take it out and put in the new one. It's just the next app that you wrote. You were like, oh, well, I remember reading about this, and I want to try this one in here this time. And so that's like the funny irony of the whole thing is you never change and like midstream in the same project. Like 99% of the time, I'm sure there's times where you do, but like You just change next time. And the next time you have a list of options that you have to pick through instead of being productive. You have to learn the other thing because you're not doing what you did last time. And I think that is the power of these full-fledged web application frameworks, is that like, oh, again, I'm doing what I did before, and that all just works, and you just figure out the problems down the line as you go through. No one decides halfway through, I want a different ORM. Like, good for you that you went Prisma to Drizzle. Why? If you started a new one and said Drizzle, yes, sure, fine, do your thing. But I also just don't want to think about that stuff every project.
Yeah, I think the problem is, though, when it's too easy, you don't get those little dopamine hits when you solve a problem. So if I'm just like using a generator to spin up a file that does what I need, sure, it works, but I could have spent a day with fun challenges, like I think that's the problem. And to be perfectly clear, I'm on the other side. I think opinionated frameworks are what you should use. But I think that's what the problem we've fallen into. And then also like junior developers coming in don't know about the opinionated frameworks. They hear about React, so they spend a bunch of time learning that. And then they do whatever they can to get those like things working together instead of just starting with a full featured thing and it just working. I don't know.
It's one of those things where you feel like you're not maybe like this is part of kind of like imposter syndrome or whatever you might call it. But I feel like if you don't know how to do something and you're just using whatever's been given to you, some developers, and like I've been in this camp too, where it's like, okay, am I that good of a developer then if I'm just using like these packages that are kind of given for me? Like within Laravel, for example, like I have cache and I have queues and all that kind of and workers and jobs kind of set up for me where I can just be like, okay, I just want to set this in the cache. I would have to find a package in JavaScript to do that. Then I probably feel more of an accomplished developer if I'm like, okay, I can integrate this package as a JavaScript developer. I can put it all together. And now I know how this works because it's a little bit more, nitty gritty to the bone kind of thing. And so maybe that's part of it too. Is like you like knowing that you are good enough to maybe solve something, even if it makes it harder for you in the long run. I personally don't care if I am like a lazy developer. I'm like, if I'm building a project,
we are
and
developers,
like someone uses
right?
it, we're good.
Code makes us efficient, and if we're relearning the same patterns over and over again, we lose efficiency. And if you want to know how the sausage is made, just read the source code, right? Like get in there and understand more, become a contributor. I think you're right. And the problem with that to a degree can also be where tech is so social now, where it didn't used to be so social. So you worked in a team and someone would be like, read the fucking manual and figure it out. And then we all get on the same page and we just make stuff. Now, instead, it's sort of like develop by committee. And you're like, I picked this package and I made this thing. And they're like, dummy, why didn't you pick this? It's so much better. You don't understand. And I'm going to make a video about it now. And why you're dumb and why this is better than this. And that happens a lot. And it's like, okay, it's fine. There's space for that. But also, it's a lot of noise. And it's a lot of noise from people who aren't making. And that's okay. Like, if your thing is to talk about all the possibilities in tech, that's fine. That's your space. You're a creator there. But if you're a developer trying to create stuff or business value, I mean, that's a separate thing. And you don't need to worry about all those things. That's what I think. Like, lean into your choice. There's a billion different ways to solve problems. That's actually what I like about development and programming is that, there's not one right answer. I mean, there's not. And there's like, well, if you had done this 6 months ago, your problem wouldn't exist. And maybe that's true, but now here's where I am. So now I have a different set of problems to solve. It doesn't make the thing that I did at the time wrong. It just means now I've got some different choices to figure that out. Who cares?
Yeah, that's really interesting because I'm the same way where like I've said it plenty of times before. Like I don't even really feel like I know that much about like the syntax of PHP, even though I've been building in like Laravel applications and I work on the Laravel team for like the past couple of years now that I've been building in it. But it's just one of those things where I don't really have to either. Like there's stuff I still keep up with and I still like, no, okay, like that's probably bad syntax. I'll look at the docs, figure it out kind of thing. But I also like am fine if like I have that kind of like magic abstracted for me. And like, it's more about, to me, like what I've learned or just felt what I've been growing as a developer is not when I know more syntax or know how to do more things from scratch and build it out, but more of like, okay, how would I find the answer if I was building this in a language that I don't know anything about? I know that, okay, this is routing and I need to find out how do I do caching in Phoenix or Elixir or something like that. And I would know how to build that. That's more of an accomplishment to me in my mind.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Being a senior developer is just about knowing how to find the answers. It's not that we know how to solve everything with no internet from memory. It's just that, like, which is also some bullshit on another tangent about, like, interviewing. That's how they expect it to be. Whiteboard this, do a sorting algorithm on the whiteboard real quick. Like, why? I'll npm install a sorting algorithm. Like, I don't need to. Anyway, sorry. A little bit of a rant there.
Oh, God, you're fired. Josh, are you looking for another gig? Because no, I'm just kidding.
Well, kind of related. I did want to ask you what advice you had for aspiring content creators.
I think so. Like my content creation story is like really crazy in my mind, at least, because it's one of those things where like I had done a lot of content for for the companies that I was working at. A lot of it was more of like how-to videos for customer support or very basic stuff, not like super technical stuff. But I always was kind of scared to do my own stuff because I was like, every single thing I'm learning is from someone who I know is much smarter than I am, and their videos or their content or their articles or whatever are much better than I am. So it was always this kind of like, hey, I don't really have too much to give. And I think what kind of helped push me over that little hump, and what I would kind of like encourage a lot of people, is like a lot of the times the stuff that has resonated the most with people is not stuff that I actually know a lot about. Like I feel like, for example, I know more about Livewire, which is Laravel's HTMX type version. I know more about that than most people, but usually the stuff that resonates is stuff that I learned an hour before making the video because I knew that I wanted to learn about this, and then I'm teaching someone that's one step behind me. And so I think a lot of the fear of putting out content is no one's going to watch it because they already know it. But at the same time, if you didn't know it, then there's probably someone who doesn't know it. And a lot of times it comes through just maybe you say it differently that someone needed to hear than I would in a lot of ways. So I think that of knowing that being able to learn something really well, sometimes it's best to learn it by actually teaching someone else, or even just sharing how you learned it. And you don't even have to know how to teach. It's just, hey, this is what I learned. And then I figured out I had to do this. And then I learned that didn't work. So I figured out I had to do this. That combined with like actually doing it consistently over and over, I learned really quickly that I wanted to make videos that I didn't have to spend too much time like forcing myself to. I always like to make things perfect. And I was like, for some of my videos, like at the start, I was like, I'm going to edit this until like it looks perfect. I'm going to have like sound effects and like, like little animations. Then it was a video that I was like recorded on my iPhone that got the first 100K views and all this. Like, it doesn't really matter too much about that. So find ways so that you can get the quality that you want. I'm not saying sacrifice quality or excellence or anything like that, but find ways so that you can like press record and be like, I have this video done in like an hour or 2 hours or whatever that time limit is. And then I can do that at least once a week or at least twice a week or at least whatever that time limit is. If you make it too hard where you're like, you want to make content, but then all of a sudden you get annoyed or frustrated or just overwhelmed because it takes you 3 weeks plus to put out a video, then you're probably doing it the wrong way in a lot of ways. Or at least you should start with doing that, and then you can do more stuff like that down the line.
Yeah. Maybe fail fast. Just do it.
Yep.
Fail fast.
I think like making sure, like start with streaming. Like you don't have to be that entertaining streaming. I know I personally am not, but like the fact that you're streaming it and recording it live, some people have already seen it. So you could just ship it in that form versus like needing to be like, oh, it needs to be 100% perfect. Like when I edit it later. So yeah, like just getting content out there is half the battle for sure. Because yeah, you're right. Like nobody knows the correct formula for like what is going to resonate with everyone on every single video. I mean, there's some people that do really well, but like, you know, half the time it's just mostly luck, and it's like a topic that happened to, you know, be important that day, and so a lot of people watched it or whatever. Like, you know, so just put out stuff that you want to put out and are passionate about. I think that is important. Like if you are making, you know, stupid videos that you don't like yourself, with like stuff you don't care about, that's going to kind of come through in like how you deliver it, that you aren't enjoying it.
Can I just put out stupid looking placeholder images?
Yes, you can. And then just make
that's all. No video.
The video
just
is
be like,
you, like, it's
you
like stop
holding that
motion. You
pose.
just,
yeah, it's just me. I'm going to live stream just this.
how
There's
long
probably-
can you stay in that? Yeah.
Yeah,
don't
there's
know.
probably some audience for that too. They're like,
There probably is.
yeah, there's an audience for everything. I like that take because I think like it's one of those things where, and maybe this is the wrong way to think about it, but I personally think that if you're not watching the same kind of content that you're trying to create, even if you wouldn't, yes, I think you should like make content that you would probably want to watch or consume in some way. You're like, oh, I sometimes like this might be like super like, I forget the word, like I'm narcissistic, but like I sometimes watch back some of my videos that I haven't watched, that was like 3 months ago, 6 months ago. I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty good. I learned something again. Like, I'm like,
Nice. That
that
reminded
turned out
me. It
pretty
was
good.
almost like a video note. Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah, like
nice.
I'm like, oh, that was a lot better than I thought it was. And I think like I watch so much YouTube, for example, that I know what kind of YouTube videos I want to make. And I think if you're not, whatever medium you're in, whether that's streaming or YouTube or articles like that you're writing, if you're not consuming that same kind of content, then you're not going to do it with yours too, and you're not going to be able to make those small steps to improve and learn, because you're not like, okay, I'm never going to watch or read my own article other than when I'm proofreading it. Well, then our next article probably isn't going to be better.
I think that is a great point and worth reiterating that if you want to create content, make sure you're watching, like you're emulating the kind of content you enjoy to some degree. And I didn't listen to this podcast for at least the first year that we did it. I was just like, I don't want to hear my own voice. I'm good. We had fun. I'm out. And then I found that over time to be a mistake, in the sense of like, I want to go back and see if perception and reality were aligned. And if they weren't, oftentimes not, where that mismatch was, and then just kind of take a mental note of that. Because again, listening to other podcasts, tech and non-tech, there were things that I enjoyed there that I wanted to integrate, and I wanted to know whether I had done so in the way I intended, or if I needed to think about it in another context.
Cool. Well, we are at time, and I think your mic is messed up again, possibly. Try to say something. And
say
we'll
something.
see.
Taco Bell.
Testing.
Say it.
1, 2, 3. Hey, everyone. Hey.
Oh, it's
Yeah, it's
fucked
messed
up
up.
again.
So I'm just gonna play you out with my voice. This is Josh Cirre, everyone. Check out Laravel. It's a cool framework for PHP. He does cool videos that you can find on YouTube. I don't know. You can let us know some other
And-
things to put in the show notes, because we don't want to do the whole fixing thing right now. But
And this
thanks for
episode
coming
is
on,
brought
Josh.
by Laravel, and Taylor Otwell will send us Lambos.
You've been watching Whiskey Web and Whatnot, recorded in front of a live studio audience.
What the fuck are you talking about, Chuck?
Enjoyed the show? Subscribe.
You know people don't pay attention to these, right?
Head to whiskey.fun for merch and to join our Discord server.
I'm serious. It's like 2% of people who actually click these links.
And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review and tell your friends about the show.
All right, dude, I'm out of here.
Still got it.